Right, let's get started. Welcome again to my panel. Comedian Leo Kearse, he's never away from the place, and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Right, first I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to start with you, Albie, because I know that I mean, at the beginning, I also loved Meghan. I was so happy. Oh, my gosh, there's somebody of colour in the royal family. Da, 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 da. Then, obviously, the wheels started coming off as they have, and now, literally, she's sort of cycling, driving on the hubs. What do you think? What do you think about all of this and the fact they're not going to be on the balcony? Do you think that's a good thing?
I think it's great that they're coming back to the UK for the Queen's Jubilee. I was really sad at the beginning of yesterday, actually, when I saw various members of the royal family posting pictures of Archie, of course, Meghan and Harry's son, because it was his birthday yesterday, wishing him a happy birthday. And I thought about how sad that situation was, that many of them hadn't seen him since he was a tiny baby, and now he's 3 years old. And then, of course, the news came out later on in the day that they were coming back for the Jubilee, which I thought was fantastic. The Queen is going to meet Lilibet for the first time, her namesake, which I think is wonderful. And then the news came out about them not being on the balcony, which I think was the right decision for the royal family. So all in all, a good news story.
Do you think that they knew that they weren't going to be on the balcony before they made the decision to attend?
I have absolutely no idea, Nana, and I can't speculate on that at all. But I would like to think that they would have come regardless of whether or not they were going to be on the balcony, because everyone loves a family reunion.
Depends who's coming.
Yeah, with the royals, I'm not sure that's going to be such a great idea.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, they must have known that they weren't going to be on the balcony. I mean, the way they've treated the Queen, and also, I mean, I think they stormed out, they flounced out the royal family, thinking they're going to become Hollywood celebrities, and they did. They got that huge deal, $100 million deal from Netflix, but it's amounted to pretty much nothing. They're filming some ropey fly-on-the-wall documentary, but other projects, you know, there's a podcast that did one episode, and this Pearl animated series has been cancelled because Netflix are realising now, oh, we've got to make some money, we've got to do stuff that is good and people want to watch, and that's not some woke nonsense from Harry and Meghan.
I know, and sadly it follows the series about a pregnant man. I think they actually did that one, so that's not
Well, I think Netflix are starting to panic now and try and make stuff that people want to watch. But yeah, I mean, getting back to Harry and Meghan and the rest of the royals, I mean, how big's that balcony? There's a lot of people on the civil list, so you know, she's got to pick and choose. And I think the royals, I'm not a royalist. You know, I'm happy for there to be a royal family, but do it with someone else's money. I don't want my taxes going to that. I want all my taxes
not very much, is it?
Going on anti-tank missiles for Ukraine.
But there's not very much, is it?
Like, you said it's not very much. It's not very much.
Think of all the tourism they bring to this country. People
you think France doesn't have any tourism?
No, but
people go to France despite them like chopping the royal family's heads off.
No, the royal family actually bring in a lot of income to this country, and I think there's a level of gravitas.
And France has got zero tourist industry. Australia, zero tourism.
I'm not talking about
America, zero tourism.
No, but they add a certain element to the whole idea and the whole, you know,
I think
belief of being British.
If we turned the Buckingham Palace into a Legoland, we would get a lot more tourists.
I think you're totally wrong, Leo. He's being silly, obviously.
I'm not being silly.
Because he's a comedian, this is just a stab at humour.
We need to privatise the royal family, turn Windsor Castle into a paintball.
They are already privatised because we kind of own them. In a way.
Well, I want more of a say. I want Prince Andrew on that balcony.
He's not. I think
right in the middle.
I love the fact that they've sort of they're relegated from the balcony, because the Queen has been so stoic and so polite to the way that she's been treated by these people. And even if you loved Harry and Meghan, I know you loved them at the start, you loved Meghan and all that, but even you said that, you know, you were all for it, but now you've seen the way she's behaving. It's just not great.
I was disappointed. I have been very disappointed with the way that they have behaved, particularly since they've stepped down from the royal family. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I'm pleased to see them back for this special day for the Queen and special day for the country.
Yeah, it's for the Queen that we're there for, and so that's what it's got to be, and the attention can't be on Harry and Meghan. And actually, do you think that after this and the fact they haven't appeared on the balcony, that actually their currency and their stock will fall considerably?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is them trying to cling on to the last vestiges of any sort of royal connection, you know, so they can be on the balcony and, like, you know, wave to the Netflix executives, oh, look, I'm still relevant, I'm still a little bit famous, but no, you're not. You can go back to your yoga classes in the Hollywood Hills.
Do you think after this we'll all stop talking about Harry and Meghan?
I think we might do, actually.
Really?
I think they're going to disappear. They're going to disappear. Look at Paris Hilton. She's gone now. She was more popular than Meghan. At least she had a window of popularity.
And also,
Meghan was popular for about 53 seconds.
And also, when Harry said he wants to make sure the Queen had the right people around her, he may have been implying that he wanted to be on the balcony, and so he would be around her. And the Queen's decided, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think the Queen, she's actually been a fantastic monarch.
She has,
possibly one of our greatest ever. And also William and Kate are really sort of representing the country well.
They're fantastic.
So I'm not a royalist, but I really respect them. And I think it's good that the Queen is listening to William and Kate and cutting out some of the elements of the royal family that bring disrepute on the family and on the country.
Yeah, there's enough of them. I was speaking to my daughter now, she's only 13, and I said, what do you think of the royal family? Her peers and the people around her, they don't think much of Meghan at all, but she goes, oh, I love Kate. So the younger generation really respect Kate and William, and that's great. That's good. So it helps the legacy of the royal family carry on.
Yeah, I think we should even skip a generation and go straight to Kate and William. I think they're ready to be king and queen.
Unfortunately, I don't think that'll ever happen because Charles has been waiting for this moment his whole life. But it's interesting that you mention the younger cohort and your daughter being 13 years old, because if you actually look at support for republicanism, it's actually highest in the under 25 cohort.
Interesting stuff. Well, we'll see. But I think the royal family, they're good. They're good. I'm quite happy that those two won't be on the balcony. Sorry. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. It was one of those. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio now. Back to the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, whose leadership is at greater risk? I mean, frankly, the pair of them. Prime Minister Boris Johnson or Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer? I mean, it's been a turbulent 24 hours for both of them. The Conservatives lost almost 500 council seats at the local elections, with Labour and Liberal Democrats making gains for their loss. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson, also the Greens did OK as well. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he takes full responsibility as he looks to bounce back, despite some call for his resignation. And here his opposition, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, celebrating his party results as they took 3 London councils from the Tories. I mean, it was Wandsworth, Barnet, and all the good ones. Westminster. I mean, honestly, let's see how well they run it. Let's hope they don't run it at a loss, or because it's one of the most efficient councils. Let's see if that changes. But of course, the smile was soon wiped away when Durham police announced that they were investigating whether he broke the rules during COVID on a visit where he drank beer in an MP's office. And I just don't understand why you made up that story online about Angela Rayner saying she wasn't there. That, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. So I'm asking, whose leadership is at greater risk? Is it Prime Minister Boris Johnson or Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer? Well, here to discuss with me, my panel, I'm joined by comedian Leo Kearse and also co-founder Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Albie, because you are there, you're Conservatives Against Racism and so on and so forth, whose leadership is at greater risk?
I don't actually think either of their leaderships are at particularly great risk at this very point in time.
Really?
I actually think the fact that Keir Starmer has his own Partygate, or Partygate 2, if you'd like to call it that, has taken some of the sting out of the entire Partygate situation. And although we did have a very tough night as the Conservative Party last night, I think losing around 480 seats, we actually made gains in places like Bolton, Oldham, in the West Midlands, even in London councils like Harrow, Enfield, we won the Croydon mayor. So it's been a very mixed result for the Conservative Party. It's not been some of the terrible losses that many of us were predicting. So I don't actually think either of the two men's leaderships are at risk at this point, but that might change.
But what about now we've got people going and getting ready to write their letters and send their letters? I mean, they can't stop, can they? It doesn't seem to me... Look, with Beergate, Partygate, they're both just as bad as each other. Keir Starmer, just for the sheer fact that he went on and on and on and on and said that people should resign, and because he did that, I think he should resign, because he said people should if they've seemed to be breaking the rules, and from what I can see, that is a clear break. But anyway, he's here. But then it's just so irritating. They're like kids. We want to talk about the cost of living now. Let's move on from your beer and Partygate. Let's talk about the cost of living. But I still want to see I want to see Keir sort of being skewered a little bit because of what he did to Boris.
He should be skewered. Yeah. 1 in 3 of the questions that he's been asking in Prime Minister's questions since Partygate have been about Partygate, instead of about the cost of living crisis. Exactly. He should have focused on that.
but I don't want the Conservative Party to start eating themselves from the inside out, talking about whether Boris should go, then the Labour Party getting consumed as to who their leader's going to be and whether, instead of focusing on what we're all dealing with, which is the cost of living crisis. Leo?
Yeah, I mean, I think Keir Starmer, he really has to fall on this sword, because he was the one who's banging on, acting so pious, like butter wouldn't melt. He said, and the video shows he was clearly at a party by the same definition. In fact, this one was more dangerous because it was inside. So, I mean, it was obviously a rubbish party because Keir Starmer was there, but it was still a party by his definition. So for him to go on and say Boris Johnson should resign, knowing full well that he did the exact same thing, I mean, what sort of... that's just blatant hypocrisy. And it's that piety. We all know that Boris lies and, and does whatever he wants, philanders and cheats and all the rest of it.
Well, he may have done in the past. I don't know whether
it's priced into his brand. It's priced into his brand. We know it, and it's part of the fun. It's part of the entertainment. But for Keir Starmer to come along as if he's some sort of perfect person is ridiculous. What I thought was very interesting was Durham Police only announced they had received new information. We're actually going to investigate Keir Starmer's Partygate after people had gone to the polls. So for me, that was quite politically motivated.
Well,
so they could have announced that before, and it would have affected the vote.
Well, it's a Labour council, isn't it?
So I think that shows the politicisation of the police force. Durham Police Force, somebody needs to investigate them and see their links to the Labour Party, because they could be trying to influence the election, and it could have been a lot worse for Keir Starmer.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could say that, and it's not good that they didn't. If they were obviously going to do it, then they should have done it before. But then you had the Metropolitan Police and Cressida Dick and behaving in a sort of a similar kind of fashion with the Conservative Party. So I'd say that's 0-0, 0-0. They're on level, on the same ground, really. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, if you're going to go on at somebody else about something they're doing, and then you're coming across as though you're perfect and haven't done anything wrong, and then you have, I think you're a more worrying person to be leading something. Yeah. I want somebody who says it to my face, who I can see coming, even if I don't like what they're doing. I don't want somebody who's sort of like the double standard, two-faced, saying one thing and doing another, and actually doing another, and then saying, oh, you're trying to distract from the cost of living crisis. It's like, no, before you were saying that they were trying to distract from Partygate, and now you're trying to distract from Beergate, claiming you now want to get involved in running the,
Yeah.
It's just not...
No, exactly. I mean, Boris lies, but he lies in an honest way. Because we know he's lying. So I think that's an honest lie.
Exactly. Well, yeah, but this one, I mean, the Angela Rayner one, I used to go, the guy who would lie about things you didn't need to lie about. It's like, one of them, I remember one time saying to him, did you go to the dentist? He went, no. He had gone.
Why would you pretend?
Why would you lie about that? Why would you lie? It was
he just had a filling and he's like dribbling out the side of his mouth, be like, no.
And then I found out he'd been. I thought, why would you lie about that? And to me, it's just nonsense things that you would lie about that worry me. That if you're leading something, you'll lie about something else.
But this is a problem, Nana. It is all nonsense. What we need to be focusing on is the cost of living crisis. And do you know who I feel sorry for? The people of Westminster, the people of Barnet, the people of Wandsworth, who have just voted in a party which is going to charge them higher council tax during a cost of living crisis.
Because that's roughly most of the Labour boroughs are actually much more inefficient. The people are concerned with that. They should be not voting with the whole Westminster what's going on bubble, but actually focusing on their local election and the local things that are going on locally. I think people have been blindsided a bit by this.
I used to work for Haringey Council, and it was that turned me right-wing. It was that made me want to vote Tory, because I saw the waste and the profligacy of the Labour establishment. And it was shocking. I mean, it's a real gravy train. And at least I worked at Westminster Council as well, and obviously it's public sector. It's still grossly inefficient, but not to the same level. I mean, it was unreal at Haringey.
Well, some would say that actually the way the parties are behaving is kind of the opposite of what they should be doing. So the Conservative Party, who are notorious for lower taxes, have become a high tax party. Yeah. And the Labour Party, who are notorious for high taxes, are becoming a lower tax party in there. So they seem to be, and then the Conservatives are attracting the red wall, and the Labour Party attracting Westminster, and so it's all. Well,
I think the red wall is always going to be there because I mean the spectre of grooming gangs hangs over the north of England and other parts of England, and it's even though it's covered up in the media, It's pervasive.
But that's not the only thing, is it?
It's not the only thing.
But the working class aspect of it.
But the grooming gangs were the sort of crystallisation of Labour's complete dismissal of the working class. The working class that used to support them.
I think there's more to it than that. They're not the only thing. It's just
they're not the only thing. But they're the crystallisation.
Brexit's another one. I mean, remember the Labour Party Jeremy Corbyn sort of did an about turn and then started saying that he was all for remaining, which was odd. Anyway, let's see what you think, because there's nothing without your views. Let's welcome our great British voice, your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics that we're discussing. Let's go over to Gloucester, where Paul Sodden is there. Paul, welcome to the programme. Right, so today we've been asking... welcome, nice to see you. Now, we've been asking, whose leadership do you think is at greater risk? Is it Prime Minister Boris Johnson or Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer?
It's a very interesting question. The bit that worries me in the question is the risk bit. I mean, a risk from who? Who's going to threaten Starmer or Johnson? The public seem to have got to a point where we accept anything. We've seen so much scandal and so much go wrong. I basically would accept anything. But I haven't forgotten the lockdowns, the draconian measures that were in place. And to see what happened both at Partygate and Beergate, just really, to me, says they should both fall on their swords. It's just I don't see who could possibly replace them. Look around. We are devoid of anybody who could get involved with actually dealing with inflation, dealing with all the things that basically lockdown, when you smash up lines of supply and demand at the same time. And I do study economics. I said at the time, I could see where this is going. And so to suddenly say that we didn't see inflation coming, or we don't have any government advisors, and we're getting so stuck into Partygate and to Beergate, they should both go. But I can't see any alternatives. I really can't.
Paul, thank you very much. He's echoing the sentiments of many. Paul Sodden, he's there in Gloucester. He's our great British voice. Yeah, I've been asking you today, so whose leadership is greater at risk? He says risk from whom? Who do you think, actually, if the risk is greater with Keir Starmer, who is he at risk from? Is it his own party? Or is it his actions?
Yeah, I mean, Labour are split. So they're riven. You've got the momentum side, which, Keir has tried to purge and tried to, revert to the more centrist Blairite politics. But I think Keir... do they have any other options? I mean, Angela Rayner. I don't know who would replace him.
Andy Burnham would be great if they could get him out, because he's the mayor in Manchester, isn't he? But he would be probably a great replacement. And I think a lot of Tory voters would be ready to jump ship if someone like that was on.
Or if David Miliband could be persuaded to return. But I don't think he wants to. He's making too much money running charities.
Ironically. What do you think, Albie?
I actually think Angela Rayner would probably be a pretty formidable opponent to Boris Johnson, especially at the dispatch box. I know, as a bit of a politics geek watching Prime Minister's Questions, whenever it's Angela Rayner versus Boris Johnson, it's always much more interesting to watch than when it's Boris Johnson versus Keir Starmer, because actually I think Angela and Boris are actually quite similar characters. They both say things that are maybe a little bit out of step, maybe a bit un-PC. She called us Tories scum, for example. Yeah. Quite similar to some of the things that Boris has said. So I would probably say that if the Labour Party were going to get rid of Sir Keir Starmer, I think Angela Rayner probably would be a good bet, actually.
Do you know, I actually got more respect for Angela Rayner after the leg cross thing. I thought, go for it, girl, yeah, use your feminine wiles. Is
that why you're wearing this today?
What do you mean? Just
inspired?
What, a suit and tie? I thought that, to be honest, I slightly would agree with you if they're going to have another sort of leadership challenge. I think she would do a better job than Keir Starmer, for sure. But I actually think Andy Burnham would be a great bet. But I don't know whether he wants to or whether he's waiting for someone to ask him. But actually, I think, having seen that. But what about the Conservative Party? Who have they got?
Well, there's no vacancy at number 10, but if there was a leadership election, I wouldn't be looking at obvious people like Liz Truss, for example. I'd probably be looking on the fringes of the cabinet, on the fringes of government, maybe even on the backbenches. Someone like Penny Mordaunt strikes me as someone who could bring together the Conservative Party and lead both from a classical liberal Brexit perspective, but also the One Nation group as well.
Interesting. I wonder what Angela Rayner's view is on the whole Brexit thing, where she stands, whether she would sort of embrace it or try and do the thing that the Liberal Democrats want to do, which is going to go backwards, which is why they'll never be in charge. Right, today I've been asking whose leadership is at greater risk, Prime Minister Boris Johnson or Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer. And lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Gerald says Starmer wanted Boris to resign after being investigated by the police. So why is Keir not resigning? Yeah, that is true, actually. Before the results had even come out, he was calling for the resignation. Ronnie says, I guess Keir's leadership would be at greater risk because he's an honourable man. And if he's broken the ministerial code, he would resign. Unlike Johnson, who will try to stay in his job whatever happens. Fortunately for Starmer, at the moment, he's innocent. Yes, well, we shall see if that pans out, won't we then? You're saying he's honourable. Well, we'll see, Ronnie. We shall see. I don't think he will resign, even if he is given a fine. Brandon says, I don't think Boris should have to resign over it. However, Keir and Boris should have resigned. It's the lies and hypocrisy which make it worse for Keir.
Yep.
That is it, isn't it? Unfortunately, because he was so pious about it. Everything, it really began to irritate my teeth. It did. It's like, stop talking. It's like somebody had scratched on a wall. I'm like, please stop. But
maybe you should have gone to the dentist instead of your ex who lied about it.
And then lie about it, yeah. Digital radio, we are, of course, the People's Channel, and it is time now for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is the United Kingdom at risk of breaking apart? Counting in the Northern Ireland Assembly election has resumed, with the Republican Party Sinn Féin set to win the most seats for the first time. Now, it is also likely to reignite debate about the possibility of a referendum on Northern Ireland and becoming one country. And north of the border in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon says her Nationalist Party won by a country mile in the local elections, and she increased the SNP seat tally, furthering her pursuit for a second independence referendum. So are these surges, are these the sort of things that are going to encourage the fact that this part could actually end up with the country breaking apart? So in the Great British Debate, I'm asking, is the United Kingdom at risk of breaking apart? But before I speak to my panel, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying already. Keith says, definitely believe UK could break up. Don't blame Scotland or Northern Ireland. Leaving England, just look at the state of Westminster. Yeah, you have got a point. You've got a point. But theirs don't look so much better either, does it? I mean, look at the Scottish Assembly. That's not so great either, or the Welsh one. Stuart says, no, the SNP and Sinn Féin will just confuse politics with referendums. No one in their right mind votes to make themselves poorer. And Sam says, if they vote to leave, surely we should just let them leave. Well, keep your thoughts coming. I don't know. We should vote as to whether... Because if somebody's leaving, you've got to decide whether they're going to, whether you're going to sort of... You've got a decision to make in there as well. I mean, if it's a relationship, maybe not. But like this, yes. Right, let's see what my panel make of that, though. I've got comedian Leo Kearse and co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Right, I'm going to start with you. Let's touch on Scotland first.
Yeah.
Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah.
Cranky. I shouldn't say that. I just said it out loud, but I did. She does remind me of the cranky. I can't help it. But she has been saying that now, again, surprise, surprise, this is a chance this could suggest that we need to go for an independence referendum.
There's literally nothing that Nicola Sturgeon sees on a daily basis that she doesn't think is cause for a second independence referendum. I mean, we had one, what was it, 2014? We had one. It was supposed to be a once-in-a-generation referendum. And now she wants another one. It's like, that's like, what is that, 7 years or something? We're not badgers. This is, if it's a generation, maybe this is why she's so intent on bringing health outcomes down in Scotland, is because, eventually we'll be dying so young that 7 years will be a generation. But it's ridiculous. The SNP have really failed Scotland on the sort of nuts and bolts, the bread and butter of politics. They've failed on education, on health, on pretty much every aspect of government. And they're constantly banging this drum for independence, and that's what gets them support. But I don't think there's the groundswell for support, especially as we're seeing how. I mean, Brexit obviously pushed support for the SNP just as it pushed support for Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland. But it's not translating into Scots actually en masse wanting to leave the United Kingdom. We can see how valuable it is to us economically and culturally. We're very similar.
Well, also, Leo, those are local elections as well, and local elections aren't necessarily reflective of Westminster. They are more about what's going on internally within your borough, who's the best candidate, and she's sort of conflating that with the reason why everyone must now vote for independence. Albie, what do you think?
I'm just not sure if the SNP doing well in Scotland is a news story. The SNP always do well in Scotland, and every time they do well, Nicola Sturgeon calls for another referendum. Literally at every single outcome after a Scottish election, this is what happens. And Leah's absolutely right to say, on the bread and butter issues for Scottish people across that amazing country, the SNP is failing Scots on education, on health. They've got some of the highest drug death rates in Europe. This is in Scotland. And I wish that Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP would focus on the issues that Scottish people are facing rather than on pushing another referendum.
Yeah, she does just keep going on. My mother says, I just can't stand that woman. She makes my blood boil, God forgive me. That's what she said. Because I find Nicola Sturgeon extremely irritating. I can't help it. But she needs to stop doing that, going on and on and on. And the thing is, now you've seen the popularity with the Labour Party, in a way, are coming back in terms of favour for the Scottish people, which I personally think is a good thing. Not because I support the Labour government. I don't know who I support. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what any of them stand for at all. But it's a good thing because there's better opposition, and it means that monopoly and that stranglehold that they have. She's not mentioned that, has she?
Well, yeah, that's the part of the problem in Scotland. The sort of unionist, the pro-British vote is split across various parties, and they're very disorganised and they're not very effective. Like the leader of the Scottish Conservatives is just ineffectual, and he's not taking any chunks out of the SNP, despite all the fraud and corruption hanging over them, and their catastrophic running of Scotland. He's not taking any bites out of them. So I think they need to. The Tories need to get a bit smart, and I think they've been focused too much on England, on the red wall, and keeping people in the south of England happy. And they need to start thinking we can actually start winning some seats again in Scotland.
I think they could, but the Labour Party should also be doing that. But I don't know what they're doing. I mean, the Labour Party lost. The reason why, in a way, I believe we're in this slight mess is because of the failure of the Labour Party, because they were the second party, or they were the first party in Scotland all the time, right? And then suddenly they were so bad, they had Jeremy Corbyn in there, everyone were not voting for him, and then literally there was a slide.
We can only blame Labour for devolution. So they created these devolved parliaments. Of course,
there was that as well.
That just creates a satellite parliament. It was supposed to be a parliament that focuses on the bread and butter issues. It does the opposite of that. It just focuses on the single issue. The SNP just focuses on the single issue of independence every time. And they've created this hostile parliament that fights against Westminster.
Do you think, as you point that out now, do you think that is actually the seed of England, the United Kingdom breaking apart, the devolution of power, which of course was brought in by the Labour Party? Do you think that is actually the reasoning as to not Brexit, because people say it's Brexit, it's Brexit, it's Brexit, but the fact that you've got these devolved parliaments making separate decisions, suddenly you then create these, all the countries then realise that they are sort of individual powers?
I'm not anti-devolution. I actually always think decentralising power is generally better because it gives more franchise to individual voters. That was what leaving the European Union was about, of course. And I don't think it's necessarily good enough for us here down in London and for British parties to be saying, oh, well, the Scottish voted for the SNP and Sinn Féin are voting... Sorry, the Northern Irish are voting for Sinn Féin. Our British unionist parties need to make those arguments for unionism better, and then people will vote for us. And at the moment, we're clearly not making those arguments strongly enough. We're too focused on issues like Partygate and on navel-gazing rather than solving the issues for all four countries in the United Kingdom. Well,
the only reason I've been dragged into the whole Partygate thing is because of the hypocrisy. Other than the actual parties themselves, I really couldn't give two hoots about. But I can't stand hypocrisy, and I don't think that people like that should be leading anything. And actually, whilst I do like Boris, I think he's great, the way this is all panning out, it's unfortunate that we haven't had a chance to really get his sort of Churchillian leadership style going because there's the distraction and everything else.
Well, he's doing it in the Ukrainian parliament. Getting standing ovations there.
Well, exactly, that's what he likes. But what about in Northern Ireland then, Albie? You're looking over at Northern Ireland, you've got Sinn Féin now. It looks like they're going to win favour. Obviously, things haven't finished, but it does seem that it's going that way. What do you think that impact might be on the union?
Call me old-fashioned, but I don't think a 0.6 gain in vote share in 24 years is necessarily a sign of success. I think it's probably a sign of stasis, actually. Now, that's not to take away from the symbolism of the fact that Northern Ireland, the largest party in Northern Ireland, will be Sinn Féin. But, of course, with the Northern Ireland Executive, there's a power-sharing agreement between the two largest parties. Right. So there'll be the First Minister, which assumedly will be a Sinn Féin First Minister. And then if they can come to a power-sharing agreement, it could be the DUP or the Alliance Party. So it's not the same situation in Scotland where if the SNP win, Nicola Sturgeon is the First Minister. That's not going to happen in Northern Ireland. The First Minister of Northern Ireland, the Deputy First Minister, actually have exactly the same role in the Good Friday Agreement.
So do you feel that this country is sort of on the verge of breaking apart, breaking out because of Brexit?
No, I don't, to be honest. And I think actually it shows the success of democracy, even though I think devolved parliaments are a mistake. I mean, in Stormont, in Northern Ireland, you have to have a devolved parliament, obviously, because of the situation there. And it actually shows the success of democracy. Because, I mean, let's not forget that, Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness, these are people that, 20, 30 years ago were leading an organisation, a terrorist organisation that was massacring civilians and women and children. It was awful, awful crimes.
Then there was that whole thing with his voice as well, where he wasn't allowed to speak, so they had the whole superimposed voice. Do you not remember that?
Yes, I do remember. But, I mean, that's an incidental thing.
But I just remembered that. When you said his name, I thought, oh, God, remember that?
But now people are settling these differences at the ballot box, and the system seems to be working. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to get... There's not a groundswell. Only 35% of people actually want a border poll, want a referendum to actually leave, to reunify Ireland, Northern Ireland. And I don't think Ireland itself, which you actually referred to as Southern Ireland, is not. It's Ireland. It's the original Ireland.
Well, listen, no, but
people in Ireland are. Okay. There's not a groundswell of support for reunification either.
Thank you for correcting me on that. It's not really a big deal, though, is it?
It is if you're Irish.
Not really, not really, because what I'm saying is
that's like calling Scotland Northern England.
No, but what I'm doing, it is.
Or Northern Britain.
No, it's not. Listen. So anyway, so the point of this is nothing like that at all. They're two separate issues. So the point of it is, do you think that the Northern Ireland Protocol should just simply be scrapped and we should just get on with it? Because as Arlene said, it should be, I think, personally.
I think the government needs to put some focus on resolving this issue, because having a customs border in the middle of the Irish Sea isn't working. As we heard, it's companies and people in Northern Ireland can't do business with the Union, with the United Kingdom, which is the country they're in. It's bizarre.
Briefly, Albie.
The Northern Ireland Protocol situation needs to be resolved, but it requires good faith from both the European Union and the British government, and I'm not sure we're seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, the EU should just let us get on with it, really, seriously. Right, well, lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Dermot says a united Ireland makes sense, and if the Scots wish to withdraw, I'm fine with that, as long as the terms are fair and they take on their percentage of the national debt. They should be told the terms before voting for independence. Let's see what Colin has to say. He says the political wing of the IRA should never have been allowed to operate in Northern Ireland. Stephen says, Nana, a lot of people think it's time the UK split up, think England should get rid of English taxpayers, pay for just England and pay for just England. I think there should also be hard borders between us and Scotland and Wales. Give the English a referendum on whether we want to go it alone. You know what? That's one of the things that I've often thought. We've got the whole thing where everyone's saying, oh, well, I don't know whether I want to be with you. And then they're all sort of breaking off. And it's like, well, how come we don't get a say in whether we want you to leave?
Well, where are you going to put your nuclear missiles?
What's your point?
Well, where are you going to put your nuclear missiles?
Well, they're ours.
Put them in Kent?
Well, they're ours. We'll move them. Right. And where are you going to get some from, yeah?
Where are you going to get your water from?
Where are you going to get your money to get some from?
Where are you going to get your politicians and your soldiers from?
Yeah, well, where are you going to get your money from?
Gordon Brown was the last Scottish Prime Minister. How good was he?
Anyway, I worry about the UK. This is what Jill says. She said, I worry about the UK breaking apart from Scotland and Ireland, but I question who would be worse off. Yes, very true. Samantha says it's so refreshing to hear Leo speak out against the way Scotland is being run. It's so good to hear a Scotsman who knows his country is being run by fools. And on that bombshell...
There's one thing that unites us all.
Yeah, exactly, that Leo was a fool. Sorry. It's time for our quickfire quiz. It's a part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. I'm with comedian Leo Kearse and also co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona. Right, they've both got a buzzer. Leo, buzz your buzzer. Let's hear it. Very good. And Albie... Nice. All right, let's do question one. OK, what are parents being asked to avoid putting in their children's lunchbox? Is it A, jam sandwiches, B, peanut butter sandwiches, or C, Marmite sandwiches? Leo.
Is it peanut butter sandwiches? Because of the allergies.
Albie, what are you going to say?
Jam.
I can't take your answer, listen, Buzz.
Jam.
I'm afraid I can't accept that because you didn't buzz with your first answer. No. So, unfortunately, whilst it is jam sandwiches, neither of you get a point.
No, why is it jam?
What are the rules of this? No, the answer is jam sandwiches. Parents have been told to stop giving their children jam sandwiches as schools introduce lessons for parents on how to pack healthy lunchboxes. And a study which tracked 18 schools over a decade found just 1 in 60 meals is healthy, with children frequently missing out on fruit, vegetables, and instead biscuits and chocolate were the replacement. So do you think banning jam sandwiches is OK? What do you reckon, Leo?
No, absolutely not. I mean, jam is a fruit. It's made from strawberries or something. It's red. So it's got vitamins, probably.
A lot of sugar. Albie?
I think parents know best what to feed their children, so it shouldn't be banned. It should be left to individuals to make the right choices.
And you think they would have banned peanut butter, actually, to be fair. Right, question 2. How much did the Ukrainian president's fleece sell at for the auction? Closest answer gets a point. Leo?
£90,000?
Albie?
£500,000.
I'm afraid Leo got it spot on because he must have known the answer.
Yeah,
Yes, £90,000.
I read the news.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. His iconic fleece jacket has sold for 90 grand in a fundraising event for the country devastated by the Russian invasion as Ukraine battles against the greater military strength and resources of Vladimir Putin. Although we'll see about that. Auctions have been taking place to raise money for the cause. So do you think Zelensky has become an icon? Albie?
He has absolutely become an icon of liberty, democracy and resistance against an oppressor.
Yeah, I think he's great, although he's sort of raised the bar a bit too high for stand-up comedians. You know, I thought I was doing all right just being a panellist on GB News. Now apparently I've got to lead a country and went into war against Russia.
Well, good luck with that. You can start with Scotland. Right, question 3. Why are gardeners celebrating this week? Is it A, plant seeds are getting cheaper, B, greenhouses are getting cheaper in carbon cut schemes, or C, Naked Gardening Day? Albie?
C, is it Naked Gardening Day?
It is indeed, Albie. It is Naked Gardening Day. Very good, Albie. So have you ever gardened naked?
I don't garden at all, Nana.
What about you, Leo? Actually, I don't want to know. Right. Actually, the first Saturday in the month of May is celebrated as World Naked Gardening Day. That's great. I mean, I love the idea of gardening, but I love the idea. Like I said, it's an idea.
The children are going to be looking out the window and seeing the neighbours naked.
Yeah, that'd be quite good fun, isn't it? Well, listen, so would you ever fancy participating in Naked Gardening Day? I wonder, at home, would you? Question 4. Let's do that one then. What has Boris Johnson repeatedly dropped from the Queen's speech after ministers say that it was fundamentally unconservative? Is it A, the ban on fox hunting, B, ban on foie gras, or C, the ban on waving foreign flags at the Jubilee? Albie?
Is it the ban on foie gras?
And Leo, what do you think?
Is it the first one?
Which was what?
I can't remember.
The first one was...
Ban on fox hunting.
Ban on fox hunting. Let's see who's right. The answer is a ban on foie gras. Did either of you say that?
I did.
Well done, Albie.
Don't try and take another point away from me.
Right, well done, well done. Yes, that's right. The Prime Minister has dropped his plans to ban the importation of foie gras as for the Queen's speech. As she warned, it's fundamentally unconservative. The measures were set to be included in the Animals Abroad Bill. Right, let's move on. Last question. Finally, who has been described as Tyson Fury's brother from another mother? Is it A, Boris Johnson? Is it B, Mr Blobby? C, Jacob Rees-Mogg? Albie?
Is it Boris Johnson?
And what do you think, Leo?
Is it Jacob Rees-Mogg?
You didn't buzz, so I can't give you the point. But what is the score? You can't have the point, Albie can't have the other point. What is the score? Let's find out who is the winner. Albie, you are the winner. 2-1. Hey! It was indeed Jacob Rees-Mogg. It's unfortunate. You could have tied Leo, but sadly you did not follow the rules. Yes, that's right. You didn't follow the rules, so unfortunately it is 2-1 to Albie. Good job.